Let's hear the other side. Guys of Reddit, what's the creepiest thing a girl has ever said to you? I once went to a ski resort where people of different nationalities were there. A young Chinese girl introduced herself to me the day I was leaving and asked for my number, so I gave it to her. She called me about a week later and asked me if I wanted to go over to her place for a dinner party. I thought to myself, sure, why not? So I turn up with some booze and find about 24 young Chinese girls and no guys. None of the girls spoke any English, except the girl who invited me. They sat me down at the end of a table, spoke in Chinese all night, while looking in my direction, and giggled all the way through. I had no idea what they were saying. At the end of the night, the hostess asked me if I would be so kind to pose for individual photos with each one of them separately. I hesitated, but went along with it. They giggled hysterically throughout, and still only spoke Chinese. No idea what the fuck that was all about, but I got seriously creeped out. Edit. No sex involved. Those girls were young. I'm a regular guy. Only thing I can think of is they thought maybe I looked like someone famous, though I don't think I do. Edit 2. Okay, some people are making a big thing about the booze thing. In Australia, it's traditional to bring some wine when invited to a dinner party. Also, here the legal drinking age is 18. The girl I met was no younger than 18, I thought, so it was all cool. I was in my mid-20s then, so by young I meant they were too young for me, though technically it would have been perfectly legal. I'm no predator, I just like girls to be around my age, but not younger by a huge margin. Also, the hostess told me none of them ever drank alcohol, which made me think that they were slightly on the innocent side. I'm 20. A pretty, sort of rock and roll 24-year-old girl asks me out at the spring this past summer. I say yes, we have a decent date. She says she's leaving the next morning for New York City for a month's time. I figure this means she wants purely to use me for sex, because she asks to come over at 12:30 at night and has been out drinking with friends. I say yes, she comes over, we have sex. She was uncoordinated and spoke atrocities while we did this awfully clumsy mushing. The worst I've ever experienced. Blame on her behalf. After I expect her to leave because she's verbalized that she has a flight at 10 AM, but no, she lingers for hours until well past 5 AM. I can't bring myself to hint that she should leave, so I go with it, lying naked next to me, breaking a long silence of hours in which I've fallen asleep. She wakes me and says, when I was 12 to 15 years old, demons would try and enter my spirit, my soul late at night while I slept. It wasn't sleep paralysis, I know, so you can imagine the terror as my eyes grew wide and I grew rigid, staring at the ceiling above me in the blackened room. She continues, they succeeded once and I became possessed. I couldn't control myself. I started hurting myself and becoming sexually violent. Sometimes I think they're coming back for me. I want you to hurt me so they can't. I had to kindly show her out after explaining that I was growing much too uncomfortable. The worst part, I wake up the next morning and inspect the condom we had used, now lying on the floor. As I pick it up to trash it, part of why the sex felt strange was that there was some texture. I felt unfamiliar, blood everywhere. It had just been overlooked the night prior due to my bedspread being all black. Fuck the blood. This happened to a friend of mine I was living with. I won't go into it, but the situation we were in demanded we shared a bunk bed. We had a rule that we could bring girls home, so long as we kept the noise down. One night, whilst sleeping, my friend brings this girl home with him. I woke up to them coming in as they went up to his bunk to start messing around. I hear the typical stuff at first. Lip smacks, heavy breathing, some moaning. Then it happened. I hear the girl whisper to my friend the words, "Are you down with the funk?" In retrospect, my friend says he said yes because the chick was hot and he didn't want to ruin the night. So he says, "Yeah baby, I'm down with the funk for sure." Almost immediately the girl takes off her panties, stands up on the bunk, turns around, squats and cheats right on his chest. Luckily for him, it wasn't the messy sort, but as you can imagine, the guy lost his sheet, no pun intended. He tossed her off the bunk and started screaming for girl to get the fuck out of his house. Meanwhile, I'm on the bottom bunk laughing miles off. So, not really the creepiest thing a woman's ever said, but now you know what the funk is. This will probably get buried. But I knew a girl in high school that was pretty sought after. She was small, blonde, busty, and had a killer smile. She loved gaming, anime, sweet tea, boiled peanuts, the whole shebang. I never bothered flirting with her or anything, because she just always had so many guys practically tripping over one another to talk to her or sit next to her at lunch. We had computer and geometry class together and sat right next to each other through assigned seating, so we got to talking here and there and had a lot of laughs. We started enjoying it so much that we started writing each other notes back and forth in class, then entire letters throughout the whole day. Then she started inviting me over to stay the night. Her parents were okay with it, and they never came to check on us or anything. I got the impression that I was not the first boy she brought home. So of course we had sex, and I lost my virginity that night. Things are going smoothly over the next couple weeks, and she starts stepping it up on the kinky meter. First she admits that she thinks threesomes are interesting. Okay. Then she says she likes furries. Alright. Then that she likes older and younger men. I don't even know what the hell that means, but this girl is letting me sleep with her on a regular basis, so I don't care. Then the letters she starts writing me in class get really graphic, asking questions like what would I do if my dad walked in on us doing it, and if he would join, or if I would come to her house after school and pee on her in her bathtub. At this point I put a lot of space between us, and a couple days later she confesses to me that she cheated on me in a threesome with 2 older men. She was really broken up about it, but I saw it as a get out of jail free card. A year later, she starts dating a friend of mine, who was only 15. Keep in mind she was about 20. I warned him that she was a bit loose in the head, but being 15 and with a busty blonde, he didn't care either. Past time forward again, I go to hang out with him at his house. Turns out she's pregnant, and they are hiding it as best they can. Things come to a head when his parents find out. Cops get called. They find pictures of them having sex together, which was exploitation of a minor, so they raid her house. They find that her parents are drug dealers, and an immense amount of child porn on her computer, some that include herself when she was younger. Turns out her mother used to make the videos of her sleeping with older men, and would sell them. Needless to say she's in jail now and there is an ongoing custody fight. TLDR lost my virginity to a child porn actress. I was over at her dorm room, and, after we got done with our business, I spotted a bottle of my cologne on her desk. I asked her about it, and she said she sprayed it around to make her room smell like me. Okay. Next week, she gets into my car, makes a big sniff sound, and says, "Oh, smells like you in here." She started masturbating. No sheet. En route to Kroger. Okay. Few weeks later, at her dorm room, I decide to get a little nosy. I find the following. 1 aforementioned bottle of cologne, 2 pairs of my dirty unders, not left by me, 3 pair of my dirty socks, again, not left by me. And this freaked me out more than anything for some reason. 4 envelope with what I can only assume to be, drumroll, my pubes in it. Not okay. I break up with her over ICQ, the good old days. She informs me that she left a bag at my apartment. It's under my bed. In said bag is a bunch of completely random shit with Kmart tags still on it. It was obviously a plant, meant to force us to have an awkward post-breakup macup reunion. May says I got my army buddy to drive me over to her dorm in his Ford Festiva. I saw her on the curb, waiting, crying. I launched that bag out the window and we took off as fast as that Festiva would go. Never did see if the bag hit her, but, given its trajectory, it's a likely point for those who will want to know. The cologne I was wearing was Old Spice. Since most girls I've met turned out creepy, this post seemed like a good moment for joining Reddit. Creepiest thing a girl ever said to me, "I'm gonna kill you, my last girlfriend," repeatedly, while trying to smash my face with a glass bottle. She now resides in a mental asylum. Creepiest thing a girl ever said to me, nothing. A 9-year-old girl. This seems harmless and requires some background to make sense. Several years ago I was camping with several friends we've met through an online game at a private lake one of us owned. Among them was a married couple, both played, who brought their children with them, a 4-year-old boy and a 9-year-old girl. Said boy managed to trip and roll down a small hill that led directly into the lake, in which he promptly fell. While I had been standing a bit in the distance when it happened, I seemingly was the first who saw him tripping and raced after him and jumped into the water. While getting him out again was no problem, I was completely beaten and had to lie down in my tent and slept shortly after. Sometime later I woke up with the 9-year-old sister sitting on the feet end of my field bed, staring at me with huge eyes. Confused, tired and half asleep days, I asked her what she was doing there, sporting the reply nothing. While being extremely creeped out by this, I almost immediately succumbed back to sleep again. Later I was told that she had apparently spent several hours sitting there, staring at me. She also followed me around for the remainder of the camping trip due to some misguided hero worship. I'm disabled and very handicapped when it comes to things like running, even if I'm usually not in a wheelchair, making the idea of going after him myself instead of altering on of the dozen people around me a very stupid thing to do. Sorry for any mistakes in the text. English is a second language for me. My story is creepy mostly because of the situation in which the event took place. I was at a typical college party in the basement of a regular party house. The third keg of the night was beginning to run dry and the drunk party goers were beginning to thin out after already finding their prey for the night. I had already resigned myself to giving my night away to the beer instead of trying to find a girl for the night. I was a little drunk. Suddenly, a wild slut appears. She was hot and she wanted to get laid. I was in the right place at the right time and she had her eye on me. I should have known things were going to go south when she put her hoodie on backwards. Either way, she approached me, hood in front, and began to flirt. I went with it. I was drunk. How could I resist? She started with her best cards on the table, telling me how bad she wanted it and of all the dirty things she would do to me. Halfway through a nice, wet makeout session she began to make a horrific retching noise. I backed away. She advanced, still gauging and heaving. She used her backwards hoodie to her advantage and proceeded to puke in her hood. She filled it. Without missing a beat she advanced on me again. I was already backed into the wall. My friends, nowhere to be found. I was alone and in trouble. I was trapped and I began to panic. She leans in and whispers into my ear, "Now there's more room for whatever I can swallow." I ran. I didn't look back, but I heard that another desperate guy managed to look past the vomit-filled hood and took her home. This is more an experience than words. While in high school, a couple of the girls from the drama program were convinced I was a vampire, got them Twilight, and thus stalked me for a while, and eventually I went with some of my friends to the end of the year drama performance thing, and because my friend was tight with the drama kids, we ended up going to the after party at some restaurant. Which is where I ended up meeting the stalkers. One was a somewhat attractive, although extremely slutty, girl that was one of the big drama stars, and another was a really shy, slightly pudgy girl. The latter one pretty much avoided direct contact with me entirely. Anyway, as I was eating with my friends in a booth next to their table, a waiter comes by and gives me a very bloody raw steak, courtesy of the cute girl. By raw, I don't mean pink, I mean like, not even cooked. Obviously I didn't eat it, but it was pretty damn weird. Gets worse though. At the end of the night, the cute girl wanted me to bite her on the neck, like a vampire. Naturally, my friends were all, "Come on, do it." So, I went ahead and bit her, all vampire style. Then I pretty much left. By the time I got home, she and the other girl had friended me on Facebook, and the cute girl pretty much wanted to date me, but I ended up just dating a different drama girl that was less slutty and cuter. Although, I later found out that girl turned out to be loads sluttier. It was a weird experience. The night after I asked her out, she said she loved me. We hadn't even gone on a date yet. This girl was pretty sweet and innocent, hardcore Catholic, and she seemed pretty awesome at the time. I didn't realize she was absolutely crazy. If you wanted the TLDR, see above. Here on out is detail city. At the time, I didn't have a car, job, or money. She was okay with that. This was my sophomore year in high school, so about 3 years ago. I had a feeling that she had liked me for a long time, but didn't see us going anywhere. I effectively friend-zoned her. When the end of the school year rolled around, I asked her if she'd like to go out sometime. In a very nervous way, she said yes and was overjoyed. I had a sinking feeling about the whole thing. That night, we were texting each other, just talking about what to do. Because neither of us had any money, we decided meet at a nearby park I used to go to all the time. She ended the conversation with "I love you." I'm a bit of a Ted Mosby myself, but at least he waited till after the first date. Jesus. Anyways, the next day we met, had a very nice conversation, and when it came time to leave, she drove me back to my house. She then informed me that she wouldn't be able to communicate with me for the rest of the summer and wanted to pick up where we left off a few months later. I was okay with it, sort of. We said our goodbyes, and I left. A month later, I get a text from her saying she forgot she had brought her laptop on her 3-month-long trip. Since she didn't have a phone, she had this weird thing for her email that enabled her to text me. At this point I thought one of two things could be true. 1. She ignored me intentionally but then missed me / felt guilty. Or 2. Wasn't the brightest bulb. Either way, I decided it'd probably be best to break it off. She was just not the one for me. I broke up with her over a text message, saying I'm doing this through a text, because that's all this was. I told her I was going through some problems that she wouldn't want to deal with. That is, suicidal thoughts, depression, etc. All were true, but it wasn't really bad at that moment. She told me that she could relate, because the last semester she almost killed herself over an app class. This is when I realized that she didn't understand what problems were and how big of a train I truly dodged. Oh, and did I mention she looked like a pterodactyl? Not in a cute way either. I once had a girl who worked inside the building I work at whom I shared words with probably 3 times, which consisted of a hello, how are you, and not much else. I worked outside, inside was leased, but part of our storage area and office, so it was highly common of me to walk in and out, talk to people there, etc. Anyway, I'd see her probably once a week or so, depending on the work schedules, so I didn't know her too well. Anyway, one night, I'm getting in my car after locking up and about to leave. Naturally, I check my phone before turning on some tunes, and I had a text from an unknown number. Now, I'm not Mr. Popular, and I don't hand my number out much besides study groups in class and the occasional person I meet. The text said, "I'm watching you." Nothing less, nothing more. Now, my first reaction was to assume it was from my boss, whom had a live feed via cameras at the outdoor/indoor section of the shop. He often used to say things like "that doesn't go there," or "you just walked past it" on the hand radios we had, so I naturally assumed it was him. A second later, I remembered that I already has his number in my contacts, so it couldn't be him. Assuming it was just a kidding, I just drove home, forgot about it that night. After the next couple days, I had another message, "You're late to work." Now, I'm pretty punctual and have only been late 2-3 times my first year working. All 3 my manager just called me, not to mention it was sent when I was at work. Anyway, pretty much forgot about it for a while, until one of the employees inside the leased area told me it was the girl whom I mentioned in the beginning. Wasn't really too creepy, considering the other stories I'm seeing, but honestly, why would you do that to someone you didn't even know? I'm in a local band. One day I went to Barnes & Noble to waste some time and look at the new Star Wars novels, and out in front of the store was the singer in my band along with 2 girls sitting at a table. Alex, the singer, introduces me to Tam and Sarah. Tam I guess I had met before, but didn't remember, because I'm not good at remembering names, and she looks completely different in full light. When I was introduced to Sarah, she looked me in the face and said, "I know everything about your band. I've never heard you guys, but I know everything about all of you." I'll admit that that is somewhat flattering, but creepy nonetheless, considering that we had only been playing as a band for about 4 months at that point. Well, we go on talking, and in the middle of us talking about something completely tame, Sarah looks up from her book and asks, "Is it considered weird if someone is turned on by breaking their partner's bones during sex?" I was stunned and had nothing left to say. I stopped talking altogether and hid in the self-improvement aisles in the store until they left. As a side note, I've had some other run-ins with her and another girl that are kind of creepy. Sarah showed up to a show we had in a bar the day before my birthday. She made sure she was the first to say happy birthday to me, and I thanked her and said I was surprised she would even know it was my birthday. She said she wouldn't be a fan if she didn't know all of our birthdays, then recited our birthdays from memory. Another girl told my girlfriend that she was lucky because female fans were only allowed to look and touch the band on small occasion, but the girlfriends were the ones that get to take them home and do whatever they want to them. I don't ever remember refusing to hug anyone or shake their hand or anything, so this one surprised me. One day at my old job, this old homeless woman walks in from the rain wearing a sandwich bag as a hat and carrying 2 bags of what I later found out to be wet trash. For the next hour or so, she lingered around the store, leaving trails of dirt on areas she touched, magazines, counters, tables, etc., occasionally asking me a question then quickly apologizing. What bothered me was that she'd stare at me for a bit before continuing to pace around the shop. She had obvious mental issues and wasn't necessarily doing anything wrong aside from making me have to clean the things she touched, including the hand sanitizer, which was a filmy grey after, and it was raining outside, so I just did my best to ignore her, and eventually she left, leaving the bags of trash behind. A few days passed, and then during an evening shift I noticed the same old woman passing back and forth in front of the store pretty frequently, occasionally stopping and kind of swaying in place. Around halfway through my shift, I was startled to look up. Business was extremely slow, so we were allowed to read books and see her standing, swaying outside the doorway before moving on down the street. After that it just got creepy, since I'd hear something and look up to see her at varying distances from the counter, swaying but not saying anything, except when I'd ask if I could help her, to which she'd apologize repeatedly before leaving. I guess it freaked me out, but I wasn't really worried about my safety in that situation. After the second time of looking up and being startled, I did grab a broom from the back room just in case. Days later, I was walking down the street stoned off my ass. I stopped at a crosswalk, glanced at the people standing across, nearly jumping back after seeing the same old woman across the street, staring straight at me. At that moment I figured I was just high and paranoid and avoided gaze, thinking I'd just walk past and go on my merry way. No. She made a beeline for me, starting walking next to me and asked, "Is that you? I need to talk to you." I think I said something like, "I don't know, oh yeah maybe, I guess, sorry." I'm in a rush walking away from her as she began to again repeatedly apologize for I don't know what again, like she had the first day she came into the store. She continued to say she was back on meds and hope things are going to be okay between us, and I mumbled, while picking up my pace, that was good to hear and that I didn't know what she was talking about but okay, and repeated that I had to go because I was in a rush. I didn't realize that I was so high I was walking in circles in the middle of the crosswalk with this old woman following me while cars were stopped at the light. Then the old woman says to me, "It's hard to end a serious relationship like this." And that's when I started running. I try not to wonder what she might have been thinking during all that staring, but luckily enough I never encountered her again before I left that place. TLDR, stalked at old job by mentally ill homeless woman. Later found out she imagined up a whole relationship. So it was a few days before Christmas, a couple of months ago. I was flying back home from a ski trip and I had a connecting flight in the Atlanta airport. Due to some bad weather, I had to spend the night in the airport. I'm 17, so I stayed in this section of the airport that was similar to a youth hostel. I got there, laid down on my cot, put in my headphones, and opened up my laptop. After about half an hour, this reasonably attractive girl who was my age walked in. Immediately, she started talking to me, forcing me to take out my headphones. We talk about where we are from and where we are going. She then starts complimenting me on my features, and I felt nice. Everything was going swell until she started asking what I had done sexually. She likes the answer, so she comes and sits on my bed. She tells me that she's into me. I shit you not. She then proceeds to call her boyfriend, dump him, and then asks for my name. So tell her my first name. She asks for my full name and takes my laptop, logs into her Facebook, and adds me. It gets better. I'm severely creeped out by now. I tell her that I have a girlfriend and I'm not interested. She doesn't comprehend that and she continues to stay on my bed. The night goes on and more people come into that same room and sit on the beds near me. She talks to them as she still is on my bed. I kindly pass the fuck out without telling her, hoping she'll leave me alone. I was wrong. Throughout the night, I woke up every hour to her touching me or laying down next to me. I even went to go use the bathroom at like 4 AM and she followed me into the bathroom. I told her to please get out so I could go pee. She got closer to me, smiling, saying make me. I proceeded to open the door and push her out and lock the door so I could go pee. After that, she slept in her own bed. But when I woke up 10x morning, I was missing a sweatshirt of mine, and she was gone on her plane to California that left several hours before mine did. If the genders were reversed, the male would be instantly labeled a rapist. Okay, so, I'm at a bar, just got there with a buddy of mine, and we order a beer. Not 15 minutes pass before a really hot girl asks me if I want to come back to her place. At the time I had recently broke up with my girlfriend of over 3 years, so I was like, fuck yeah. Anyway, I say, sure, if my friend can come too. The girl agrees, as she will be bringing a friend of her own, another girl. My friend wants to finish up his beer, so I go ahead with the 2 girls. We end up at this chick's place, which has strange furniture, like the sofa we're sitting in is really just a big bed in the living room. The 2 girls want to smoke some weed. After smoking, the hot girl gets super weird. She starts barking like a dog and attacks me, licks my face and hits me. What the fuck? Like that's not weird enough. The other girl just sits in the corner and watches, saying stuff like she wants to fuck you. Why don't you go into the bedroom next room? While the girl goes apeshit jumping me and holding me down while licking my face. That was one weird night. Had another story from years past where I woke up in my bed at my mom's, not remembering how I got there. I lived at my father's at the time. I'm butt naked and my ex is sitting in the bed, fully clothed, just looking at me. When I wake up and look at her, she just says, I better go now. Edit. TLDR. Girl at bars takes me home, acts like dog and jumps me. Wakes up naked in bed, no recollection of getting there. Ex-girlfriend is sitting in the bed, fully clothed, observing me. My buddy was making out with some young slut he just met at a water park in Tampa. Fell in the wave pool and I swam up and said to her, is my name Skip? Just joking around, and her eyes lit up and she said to my bro, but you're my boyfriend, wouldn't you get mad? And he laughed and said not at all. So I started to make out and feel her up in the wave pool. All of the girls around her start looking at her with these OMFG looks and saying shit out loud like what a slut. She then asks what we are doing later, to which my broski replies, we are going to be faking you later. And she said okay. Was incredibly hot because she was tiny, cute and really innocent looking. So later on that night we were taking turns faking the ever-loving shit out of this chick, and as I'm faking her she says to me, tell me you love me. So I told her, and she kept asking me to tell me I loved her over and over as I was faking her. She then starts to ask me on a scale of 1 to 10 how much do you love me, and I was laughing and kept yelling out a 10, a faking 10. She then starts screaming my name out every time she has an orgasm loud as shit. Not erotic loud, but having a baby loud. Josh 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 at the top of her lungs. I kept putting my hand over her mouth, and she kept moving it to her throat, but she was so small I was scared I would hurt her, so I stopped and just flipped her on her hands and knees and pushed her face down into the pillows. Then after I came in her, she gets a call from her boyfriend on her cell phone. She proceeds to tell him I'm getting faked right now by a real man, and I can hear the guy crying, asking her why we have been dating for so long, blah blah. He is crying bad, and I started to really feel like shit about it. She then tells me she wants me to take pictures of her with my dick in her mouth and pictures of her licking and sucking my balls with her phone, so I do. Then this batshit crazy bitch sends the pictures to her boyfriend, to which he calls back crying again. So after a little bit I start faking her again, and she starts begging me to take pictures of her as I come all over her face and mouth, and I do because fuck it. She then proceeds to send these to her boyfriend and again he calls back crying, and she is just being mean as she telling him you could never fuck me right blah blah. Seriously, what the fuck was wrong with this female? She has to be the most faked in the head person, male or female, that I have ever met. Don't get me wrong, the sex and her dirtiness was exceptional, and was incredibly attractive, but her meanness was off the charts. The moral of the story is stick your dick in crazy, but then lie, and tell her a fake number, so you never have to hear from her again. The end. When I was working at McDonald's, we had a girl who cleaned the restaurant. I'm not quite sure what, if anything, was wrong with her, but she seemed to have a screw or two loose. Anyway, I had 2 crazy run-ins with her first. On my first day working, she came up to me and told me how she wanted some excitement and adventure, and asked if I wanted to do something later. I wasn't sure what to say, so I told her I was busy. She then pulled me to the side and said, very quietly, I'm going to rob a bank, but I need some help. Will you help me rob a bank? I said no and slowly walked away. The second time I was in the back putting the oil machine away when she came up next to me and started talking about how she has never been kissed and really wants to kiss someone. At this time no one is in the back with us and it's a little dark. I was half expecting her to grab my face with a chloroform soaked towel. I simply told her no thanks and I quickly left, but since she was blocking the only exit, she was still really close to me and came very close to getting my cheek on my way out. Point even crazier, one of my co-workers went in the back very shortly afterwards, and she was still here. He had one of the source guns with him. He was looking for a replacement in the back, since we ran out up front, and she tried to force herself on him. He decided to shoot her with a source gun right in the face and ran. While it was hilarious, he ended up getting fired for it. A few years back, at my old job, one of my co-workers, vacation job, and we used to have a bit of a flirty thing going on, but I presumed it was just a jokey friends thing. Backstory, she has a son, although he was living abroad with her parents, a long distance relationship with the father of this son, and I had a girlfriend. We both knew this. One day she sends me this text professing her undying love for me blah blah blah. I unequivocally tell her that nothing would be happening, we were just friends, and that I had a girlfriend who I would not be cheating on. I recalled at this stage that she had almost broken up some other relationship by sleeping with a married man. I'm not one for drama. Few weeks later, I'm back at university sat on the couch with my girlfriend. Haven't heard from co-worker for ages. My girlfriend is playing with my phone. I'm just watching the TV and suddenly my phone chirps. On the screen it says just this, phone search. My girlfriend says, care to explain? Luckily, she was pretty chilled out and it all became a joke. I replied politely declining her offer. A month later I'm back at home. Just gotten home from work. Receive a text. I'm so horny right now. I'm on my period, but if you come over I'll suck your cork. I just didn't reply. I was quite angry, to be honest. I had already explained the situation multiple times. Next morning, to my horror, we are working in the same team, just the two of us. I was quite angry, but to maintain a professional relationship I just quietly did my work. No other conversation point. She just says, "You're quiet today. Everything alright?" Basically, she had recently started taking amphetamines illegally. One of the common side effects is horniness, for those that don't know. I guess I was receiving the brunt of this. TLDR, co-worker text me asking me to come over to get a blowjob because she was on her period, because naturally that meant we couldn't have sex. We had no previous sexual relationship, and I had turned her down multiple times. I work at a hotel where this new girl just started working a few weeks back. This said girl happens to be a University of South Carolina cheerleader. I'm a human resources manager at the hotel and I conducted her orientation on her first day and discussed with her all the benefits of the company, as well as made her file her paperwork etc. Anyways, this girl kept coming up to me and saying, "You have no idea, you have absolutely no clue." A couple weeks later of hearing her talking behind my back about how much she likes me etc. to my coworkers, and let me also let you guys know this girl single-handedly sabotaged the one positive thing in my life, and that was my girlfriend at the time. My girlfriend couldn't trust me around this girl due to the fact that this girl blocked my girlfriend on Facebook, immediately provoking crazy thoughts from my girlfriend, and then the questions arose. Anyways, on to the part where she said something crazy. One night, at a bar, I was hanging out with said crazy girl. She approached me after asking over 10 people in the bar that I didn't know should I talk to him about it. Finally, with some hesitation, she did. Crazy girl approached me to take me outside to talk to me. She then began to explain how, when she was little, she had been involved in a wreck where she had been hit by a dump truck head on. She couldn't move any of her body from her neck down and was sure she was dying. She had begun to cry and realized that she was, in fact, dying. Then she began to tell me that she had saw the white light at the end of the tunnel and accepted her fate. Around this time the EMT arrived, she recalled, though she doesn't remember it. She swore to me that during the time she saw the white light, that she had seen a vivid dream with me in it holding our 2 children, and I was calling out her name to stay alive. Our daughter was screaming her name out to her for her to stay alive. Mind you, during this whole story crazy girl was crying and making me really uncomfortable. She then proceeded to tell me that how the day of her orientation she saw me, but couldn't put a face to a name. As soon as she realized that I was her dream guy, she called her mom and had a breakdown over the phone. She then told me that she was taken to the hospital the night she had met me because she couldn't control her panic attack and had to receive medical attention. TLDR. God, crazy beach be crazy. My cousin and I stumbled upon a really seedy nightclub in the early hours of a Sunday morning following a heavy night on certain, shall we say, stimulants. We were on LSD at the time. As soon as we walked in we knew that we had entered the twilight zone. Everybody looked a little off, and the place just seemed chaotic as doped out zombies wandered around in a haze to weird music and randomly entered into conversation with everybody and anybody, including us. We were not seasoned trippers, mind you. Anyways, we grabbed a few beers and just kind of sat down and observed the wildlife with a sense of curious amusement when suddenly this chick decides to approach our table with a couple of her drugged out friends and do a sensual dance in front of me. I was definitely getting a vibe, so I decided to start talking to her, and she soon told me that she wanted me to bite her on the neck, since apparently she was really into pain. This kind of freaked my drug-addled mind out, so I kind of laughed her off, but she persisted to the point where she was jumping on my lap and pushing her neck to my mouth. I literally had to push her off me, and she fell on her ass. Following this, her friends broke out in laughter, and then she kind of looked at me vaguely, shrugged, and walked off. Looking back, that had to be one of the weirdest nights of my life. I know this doesn't quite fit, since I'm not a guy, but I once went on a quasi date with a girl who was 17 going on 12. I was 21 and already felt uncomfortable going out with a teenager, but it wasn't really going to be a date, just a hey let's get to know each other date. It started off just weird, not creepy. She showed up at my apartment in pigtails and overalls. We went outside and got in her mom's minivan. Oh yes, her mom was driving. It felt like a playdate. I made small talk with her and her mom until we got to where we were going, a little artsy place in Indiana, Nashville, if anyone's familiar. Surprisingly, her mom let us go off on our own, probably because her daughter was with an adult. Eventually we ran into her mom outside a jewelry store, and then it got creepy. She threw her arms around me and grabbed my shoulders like she was showing me off to her mom, which, well, she was. Mom, look, isn't she pretty? You didn't get to see her in the car, but look, she's so pretty. And then she took me to a toy store where she told me she loved me because we both thought some little figurine thing was cute. Oh my god, you're perfect. I love you. Bye. The end of the afternoon, I was treating the excursion like an unpaid babysitting job. She and her mom invited me to their house for dinner, and despite her pleading, I made up some lie about having plans with my roommates. One of my roommate was my best friend, who still to this day teases me about the most awkward date ever. TLDR. It felt like dating a 12-year-old, maybe younger. I had only one crazy experience that really got to me, and I apologize for the long-winded text, but I'll assume this'll drown in the wall of text this post has created. My older sister, who is 4 years older than I, was in her last year of high school and was friends with the principal's daughter. In the Canadian system we used to have OAK, kinda like 13th grade, until it was removed from the education system. So, there I'm doping it up in 10th grade as a sap with a close cadre of friends. My sister comes up to me one day with her friend and tells me that her friend has a little sister about my age and was interested in sending messages back and forth with me. I'm suspicious of this because my older sister loves pulling pranks on me, but I acquiesce and agree and receive first letter. It's pretty mundane and soon we are sending letters back and forth regularly once a week. Now my friends warned me I'm making a huge mistake because my sister is friends with the principal's daughter. I'm now in contact with the principal's other daughter. I just learned that some girl has been sneaking about my locker and left a note taped on it. So I read the note and realized it was from the girl I was passing letters to. Apparently, she went to school 2 cities over and took the time to travel to my school and leave a note. How the hell she got my locker number is beyond me. First red flag point. Then a couple days go by and on the weekend my sister and her friend have a sleepover. I notice that the friend is popping a lot of pills, like a dozen or so. I inquire about it privately with my sister and she tells me that her friend has emotional and psychological issues which at times has resulted in her being hospitalized for attempted suicide and threatening to kill other people. I then inquire on whether or not this runs in the family. Apparently it did. Her friend's sister also had a history of emotional and psychological breakdowns which once had her threaten to commit suicide if a guy didn't take her out to a movie. Second red flag point. I'm sitting there at the dinner table reading a book when my sister's friend walks in with a letter and hands it to me saying that her sister really liked me and wanted a picture to keep with her. I ask her, wait, how can she like me? She hasn't even met me. She responds by saying, oh, she saw you in school yesterday during lunch. She walks off, and I open the letter and find a locket of her little sister's hair and a picture of her under it written, I love you. Third red flag point. I go up to my sister's room and ask her to join me in the backyard for a talk. It went something like this. Me, what the fuck have you gotten me into? Sister, what? What are you talking about? Me, first you're friends with the principal's older daughter and now I'm getting letters of love and fancy and mysterious visits without knowing about them from the younger sister. And now I'm being asked to send a picture of me for her to keep. And I've just gotten a lock of her hair. Sister, oh, no. She told me that her little sister had a crush on you. She can be a bit obsessive. Me, a bit. This girl has somehow traveled across 2 cities and taped a letter to my locker door. How the fuck did she know where my locker was? And how did she get here? You've basically doomed us both. We screw up somehow with either sister and the principal is going to destroy us both. Or, I'm going to end up with a knife against my throat in school, or here at home. Oh god, they know where we live. So, what do? I write back to the little sister and say, I'm sorry I don't have any pictures of myself, and I must say I can't continue writing letters, because I'm in trouble with my parents over my grades. Sent. That off and then received the very next day. That's right, the very next day, I go to my locker and find not 1, but 8 letters of her professing her love for me. There were letters with the words, I love you smeared in red lipstick, and one that had a giant heart written with her name and mine. One that had tiny I love you scrawled and covering every inch of the page back to front. One that had lipstick kisses and a red handprint. One that said that whenever she got my letters she would smell them for my scent. And the really terrifying one was the one that said she liked my new haircut. I only got my hair cut the day before on the weekend, and a new picture of her smiling with really intense blue eyes. And written on the back of the picture, I'm coming over to see you after school to talk about us. Motherfucking red alert. I take all the letters and pictures and burn them in the back of the school and then pretend to be sick and go home. I pretended to be sick for a good week. I avoided going to school by myself, and I changed my locker number and I began to eat my lunch in my classroom while the teacher marked grades. A month later my family and I moved due to my dad's job. TLDR, an obsessive unstable girl who was the daughter of the principal professed her love for me in creepy letters and visits to school unbeknownst to me. I had to change my whole schedule and activities to keep myself safe and the wrath of an angry father/principal. Well, I was pretty much in love with this chick I knew since kindergarten. She never gave me the time of day and I pretty much kicked it fucking tough in the friend zone for years. Fast forward to about junior year of college, I start getting random text messages and phone calls. Long story short, she lost her shit and would call me in the wee hours of the AM and tell me tons of weird shit. Let me list all the crazy shit she talked to me about that I can remember. She used to film herself masturbate and wanted to present this video and a speech at her recently deceased aunt's funeral, where she would perform the eulogy point. She met a new boyfriend who doesn't have sex with her. No way. He just lays down next to her and smells every inch of her body. I told her to ditch that dude. Point. She had some lost uncle whom she referred to as Maestro. She always tried to convince me that he was some piano protege and she is gonna learn to write symphonies. On her way in from California, she convinced my friend, who drove her, to pick up some homeless dude who called himself Hurricane Mitch. Well, this dude turned out to be an early alcoholic and went on this crazy tangent about how he crept into some Aztec ruins or something and stole a whole bunch of sacred stones and ore. He was fleeing Mexican authorities because they were pursuing him. My friend, the girl, went and bought $300 of rocks from him. She then told me she was quitting school to make jewelry out of Aztec stones. She just threw the rocks away, along with her money. Point. If I remember more, I'll update it. She's a lot better now. Mate of mine had been going out with this girl for about a year. She seemed rather nice, but was having a tough time with some family issues. Apparently she wasn't coping with it. Point. Anyway, he and her move into another mate's place with his fiancée when their old landlord gave them notice because he wanted to move in himself. Things appear to be fine for a little while at the new place and everyone seems to be getting along. But really she is having more and more problems. Then in the middle of the night a few months after they moved in, my mate and his fiancée are woken up by her and my other mate having a massive argument. It's like 2 AM and they are not in any way being quiet. Suddenly she shouts out at my mate. A real man would hit me when I told him to. Apparently, she got angry at him because he refused to punch her in the stomach as hard as he could. She wanted this so she would feel a different kind of hurt than what she felt then. Point. He packed her a bag, escorted her to his car, and drove her to a hotel. Said she could come back tomorrow to get her things, but that was it between them. Point. She is apparently still messed up and took out an avo on the guy she dated after him. Seems he did as she asked/demanded and punched her a few times. Something odd happened to me at the bar one night with some friends. We were all playing pool as per the usual. It's not so much a social thing as a hangout at this point anyway. After going out for a smoke I come back in and I see a woman. So I smile at her as she's staring at me. She smiles back and then about 10 minutes later she walks by and touches my nose and sort of mumbles out, "I really like your hair," just before going into the bathroom. That phrase is repeated to me quite a bit by many strange and creepy people, but usually without the touching. In a hoe, I'm a bit disturbed at this point, but not totally freaked out, so I continue to wreck this faking pool table and quickly go back outside for another smoke, hoping to avoid all social contact with this person. Just my luck, however, she smokes halfway through my cigarette. I decide to finish it as fast as possible and jaunt my way back in. After a while I think I'm in the clear. There is no way she's actually going to talk to me. I should be good. At this point I should mention this bar is rather small, but then something odd happens. Now I'm not entirely sure if I'm paranoid or this is some strange tactic. She decides to start hitting on any guy willing in there, and she manages to find one, and at this point everything appears to be normal. My thoughts came to be, oh, she just wants to get laid. Okay, I'm in the clear. So I hang around for a bit, then I go out for a smoke and the guy she's managed to wrangle is out there having a good time. Meanwhile she's just inside in the window looking out, and I have a couple of friends around who see this, and apparently she's just faking staring. So I do my best not to look and avoid all eye contact. Eventually she got in a cab and left, but for a while there I was sufficiently creeped out. I never really knew, however, if the staring was entirely directed at me. Point. Sorry, my grammar is shit and it's incomprehensible. I'm tired and I've stopped caring. Not nearly as weird as some of these, but when I was in 7th grade my sister had this friend who had a sister. I never really talked to either of them. One night, my sister is on the phone with her friend and starts asking me questions about my favorite movies, music, etc. I think nothing of it, but then she tells me not to let anyone sit on the bus with me. Her friend's sister wants to. She is not an attractive girl, not at all, but I decided I would just suck it up. So, as expected, she sits next to me and starts talking to me about movies. All of the movies I mentioned. She then pulls out her iPod and shows me all of her favorite music. All music I said I liked. She makes me listen to it all using her headphones. We get off the bus, and the rest of the day goes fine. Nothing else happens until high school. She had been in the vocational school, and I was in the normal one. One day she just shows up and says she transferred because she hated her school. She starts doing all of the clubs and stuff that I do. I wasn't all that creeped out, so I thought nothing of it again. Flash forward to next year. This year, I transferred to the vocational school because it is so much better. Nothing to do with this girl. Anyway, first day of school she tracks me down in the hallways. She transferred again. Seriously, what the fuck now? Every so often I see her in the distance looking at me. It's creepy. She's creepy. TLDR. Girl made me sit next to me on the bus in middle school. Transferred high schools twice to where I was going. Back when I was 15 over 16, I would be on social networking sites like Bebo or MySpace, and at that age you go and add people as friends at random, and get added by plenty of other people. I added some girl with a ridiculously gothic page. I was into that shit back then, and we got to talking, as you do, through comments, MSN, whatever. Now, her profile picture wasn't her face. It was some stock gothic looking picture, which should have been my first clue that she was an ogre, but I didn't think anything of it. Also discovered that she lived in America. I'm in Ireland, so I was like, whatever, I'll just be friendly with this girl. After about 2 months of semi-regular chats over MSN, with absolutely no indications from me that I like her in any way other than a friend, she starts a chat with me and tells me that she broke up with her fiance. She was the same age as me. I thought it was crazy that she was engaged, but I just put it down to Americans being weird. I do the usual, AWW, poor you okay? After which she tells me, yes, because now we can be together. I'm sorry, what did you say? I'm going to move to Ireland, get a job, and we can get a house together, and be in love. What the actual fuck? TLDR. American girl told 15-year-old me that she ended her engagement because she loves me and wants to move to Ireland to be with me. Let me preface this by saying I'm still active duty in the Navy as a hospital corpsman. Last year I ran a department and clinic in Naval Station Great Lakes that for the most part consisted of sailors who were from the Midwest or were just out of their school, read, MOS training. I had this one HN/E3 working for me who was really wanting to transfer from a different clinic on base where she helped NPs and nurses perform female wellness exams to my shop that was mostly daily sick call and other medical appointments. After a few months the weirdness set in, and this girl's stories started making little sense or conflicting with other stories she told us or others. Specifically, she told many of us that she had 3 children living with her mom because she couldn't afford to take care of them. The husband was an E5 somewhere in California, first on a ship, then working with the Marines, then a Marine, so, yeah. Well, one night I get a call that she's in the hospital having a miscarriage. This is strange because she's still married but separated and shouldn't be having an affair, yada yada yada. When I get to the ER to check up on her attending is a doctor I used to work with in the Naval Hospital back when the base had one in 2004 to 2005. He told me she's a piece of work and to speak with the nurses. They told me that she told one nurse that she had 3 kids and 2 failed/terminated pregnancies, and a different nurse that she had had 5 live births and 3 failed/terminated pregnancies, and she had breast cancer. So, doing with doctors and they ran some simple tests such as a BRCA screening and an HCG test. Both came up completely normal/negative results. So this girl I've never spoken to on any occasion adds me on Facebook. Turns out she lives on campus with the bass player in my band. Thought he was hot. Facebook stalked him, moved on to me when he ignored her long enough, the smart one of the band apparently, and we ended up talking online. Mainly under the assumption that she said she liked our band, was a fan and was interested. That should have been enough of a clue. We sucked. I thought I was networking, trying to establish fans etc. point. So we talk for a week, and I barely know what she looks like. Profile pics never gave anything major away, but she's established I like Fight Club and work in a record store / cafe bar one shift. At a really dead time of day, there's only one girl in the whole place. She's sitting there, watching me over her copy of Fight Club, while I'm going through stock. I had a suspicion that it was her, so I looked over trying to see if she was remotely familiar. Surely if that's her she'd say something. She didn't point. She pays for her coffee then walks out. Point. Still curious, I check FB chat on my mobile. As soon as she walks out the door, I ask her what she's doing. She replies, I just had a soy lat. It was delicious. I'll be enjoying one again tomorrow. Maybe not a big deal, but the fact I have no idea how she found out where I worked creeped me out. After blocking her on Facebook, she proceeded to attempt the same thing with remaining members of the band. Point. Moral of the story: no girl who first goes for a bassist can be trusted. All of these incidents involved girls about 13, 14ish in age. At times in my life, when I was mid-30s or older, I've heard from a few adult women that they used to do stuff like this when they were that age to screw with men's heads because they were bored. Point. I was on a light rail commuter train early Sunday morning, the only person in the car. Young girl boards and sits right next to me, bumping into me and almost leaning on me. I'm pretty much paralyzed as I'm completely unprepared for how to deal with this. Her hand falls into my lap. I bolt off that train at the next stop and am extremely relieved she didn't follow. This is the worst, but I'll share some others. A nice spring day, I'm waiting at a don't walk light to cross a busy street. Two girls come up standing just behind me. Nobody else is around. They start singing If You're Sexy and You Know It, clap your hands. If you're sexy and you know it. I pretended like I didn't hear them and ignored them. Point. I'm walking home through a residential area on my way home from a park. I walked this route almost every weekend day about this time until this happened. One day I hear voices of a couple girls chatting behind me. They had just come out of one of the houses. They come up close behind me, chatting, and soon pass me. They are both dressed in super slutty outfits, kind of what you might expect strippers to wear. Extremely short colorful fluffy skirts, fluffy colorful stockings, etc. Nobody else is around, but I'm extremely embarrassed wondering how many people in these houses and apartments see this old guy me following these two girls dressed this way. I slow down considerably and try looking at houses and anything other than forward, but I notice they both peek behind at me. I turn down a side street to make my escape. Point. I'm doing yard work in my front yard. A girl, probably a little older, maybe 16, comes up and asks me what time it is. I look it up and tell her. She compliments me on my yard work. After a little friendly talk like that, she puts up a shy smile and asks, wanna have some fun? I'm completely unprepared for this and mutter out something like no thanks, but have a nice day, and decide I need to go in my house for something. Not too creepy. Was dating a girl, things got pretty steamy, and we were making out. Suddenly I just felt a presence, you know that feeling you get when someone is staring at you, and I opened my eyes, and there she was making out with me, while straight open-eyed staring at me, watching me. She got really shy and introverted after that and kept apologizing. I tried to put her at ease, but it was just weird. Like I said, not that creepy, but whatever. The other one was at a campus-wide school function. I had been seeing this girl, but she would only ever be affectionate or into me at certain times. I came to find out that this was only when her ex was around on campus. Suddenly she would spring into her mode and get super aggressive. Once I found out, I put the brakes on the relationship for obvious reasons and proceeded to cut her out of my life. Anyway, at this school function are all of my professors, leaders of the school, etc. She tries to get my attention and chat me up in front of her ex, and I proceed to walk away. In the middle of this picnic she starts screaming at the top of her lungs, see, I told you he won't even look at me. See, I told you. Why won't you look at me? Just look at me. Why won't you talk to me? Some other things were said, but needless to say it felt like the entire student body and faculty stopped eating, turned around and stared at us for a good couple minutes or so during her tirade. I responded to my buddy with, don't we have to be somewhere? He replied with, yeah, over there, away from here. The look on her face was pure hatred, and she just screamed like a 3-year-old child. I knew this girl a few years back. I had known for a while that she had a thing for me, but I had no feelings like that towards her. But she had never asked me out or anything, so there wasn't any warning for what happened next. So she, my friend, and I are having lunch at our favorite restaurant. First week back on campus, when out of the blue, this girl says to me and my friend, "Ik know what? I think that blue jobs are just as much fun for the girls as they are for the guys." Now, at first, we thought she was just joking. But she wasn't done. She then goes on to talk about her summer, specifically the 8 guys she had given blue jobs to. Then she asked, so boys, who wants to be 9 and 10? In a completely serious manner, no BS at all. My friend is looking a little uncomfortable. He was in a relationship at that point, and I just about ran out the door at that point. But we had to keep our cool, since this girl was our ride back to our dorm. I didn't have a car, my friend's was in the shop, and the dorm was on the other side of campus, so we had to spend another hour with this girl, who propositioned us both for blue jobs, until we got back to our dorm. I'm happy to say that this girl is no longer in my immediate circle of friends, and as a warning, if you see a girl about 5 feet 9 inches with short brown hair, blue eyes, and 2 purple unicorn tattoos, one above each elbow, run. Not exactly a creepy thing she said, but one of my exes growled at me the last time we had sex. Like full out tiger growled, and then raked her long nails down my chest. Not in a sexy way. Nipples were damaged. My ex before her was a bit of a basket case. I have a couple of stories. This one time we were walking in the park on a Monday at 6 o'clock in the evening, and I got jumped by these 2 big guys and a girl. The girl didn't do much. She kicked me with her flip-flop clad foot. The guys were about 6 feet 3, 6 feet 4. I was 5 feet 8 at the time. They laid waste to me, and she just kinda stood there. That's not the crazy bit. She'd always say stuff in attempt to make me jealous / pay attention to her. She insisted on taking me to the hospital, and I had to fill out a report and such. Within the span of a week she said that one of the guys who jumped me punched her in the stomach at a gas station, and the cop who filed the report was texting her and asking her out and cheat. The last time we had sex was September of 2010. I used a condom and gave her the morning after pill because 1. I didn't want to stick my dick in crazy anymore and was going to end it soon, and 2 she had some health issues and wasn't on birth control because the doctors thought that her cycles were messed. So I was weak and didn't end it for a few months. December 17th, and the day after New Year's, I get a text from her saying that she's pregnant. I was 17 at the time, and I told her I couldn't care for the kid and that I wanted her to either abort or adopt it out. She said no, and that I was putting a lot of stress on her, and that was giving her cramps. A day later she said she was going to the hospital for the cramps, and I get a text a few hours later saying that she miscarried. Cue the bullet dodge. Now, I'll never know for sure if she actually was pregnant, but it's possible, because she later claimed to be on antibiotics when she took Plan B. Either way, she admitted that she knew for 3 months and just never told me. TLDR. Her story was that she was gonna have my baby without me knowing. Edit. Formatting. About 12 to 13 years ago, just after I got out of high school, I dated this girl who, as I discovered, had some serious issues. We had been dating for about 3 months when she told me she was pregnant. Needless to say, I panicked for about a week. Then she told me she got an abortion. Being pro-choice, I basically said okay, but I would have liked to talk about our options before that drastic step was taken. Another week goes by, and she tells me that she had lied about getting an abortion. Before I can say, oh shit, so you're still pregnant, she tells me that she had also lied about even being pregnant in the first place. She had just wanted to see if I would run out on that responsibility or stay with her and deal with it. What the fuck kind of twisted bitch does that to her boyfriend, all in the name of, ironically, an experiment in ethical responsibility for sexual actions? I said just about as much, and then I broke up with her on the spot. Fortunately for me, I had not told my parents about her being pregnant yet. I imagine it would not have gone over very well. Raised Catholic. Funniest part to this came years later, when my then long-term girlfriend, wife and I were starting to think about our future together and having kids, and I found out that I'm in fact sterile. Genetic disorder I was born with went undiagnosed until I was 24. I would have loved to know that back when I was still a teenager. Would have definitely avoided that scare, plus a few others, with other girlfriends. Out of nowhere a wild coworker interrupts my conversation with my other non-crazy coworkers and starts asking personal questions if I'm married or single. Seeing anybody then started to ask about Thursday. At this time it's Monday. She was very insistent on knowing what was going on Thursday, and I start dodging and avoiding her questions and start resuming my conversation with my level-headed not insane coworkers over speaking the crazy one, so her voice got drowned. Nobody knew I had a divorce on Thursday, so instantly my walls went up, and rest of the week I ended up little freaked out. And the day before, as I was leaving for lunch, she ran up on my porch and started with the questions and straight-faced said nothing going on Thursday besides work ECT, and she called me a liar. So rest of the day I ended up glaring at her, and every time I passed I'd ask her the same questions in the same fashion she asked me. Luckily Crazy is on another target. One of my normal coworkers I was talking to on Monday when all this started had her hair the darker winter colors for about 2 weeks now or so, and the other morning Crazy out of nowhere runs up on normal coworker's porch and touched her hair and heavily commented how nice and soft her hair is and how young it made her look and feel. Then Crazy gave the doe eyes and a smile, then went away. That's just one crazy thing that's happened in my life. I used to have long hair middle of back or waist there. About years ago I was standing in line for something at the Renaissance Festival, and this girl strokes her hand down my back across my hair, and I turn to look what the fuck and see this girl smiling and says thank you and casually walks away and disappears into the crowd. One night in college, a friend and I decided Dunkin' Donuts run was needed. We get there right around midnight and order. After paying for my food, I put my wallet back into my shorts and proceed to hear from behind me, "Oh, those are some nice pockets you have there," from some female voice as of yet unidentified. I thought it must have been a friend from school who also thought a Dunkin' run was necessary. I turn around, and this woman in her mid to late 40s with disheveled grey hair and one of those very puffy overcoats is staring at me. She then brings her hand up to her face and makes a gesture while saying, "You have a very nice face." I, not fully comprehending the situation, nod and grab my food and quickly move to the table my friend is at. I sit down and say, "Starsky," his actual nickname. Nobody calls him by his real name. There is a crazy lady at the register. Before he has time to realize what's going on, the lady has walked over to our table and stands looking at us. "How are you boys doing tonight?" "We're doing just fine," we reply. Starsky is more extroverted than I, so most of the conversation was between him and the lady. If she ever gave us a chance to speak, she goes on to talk about how she was on her way to Washington DC so that she could talk to John McCain about suing her family, most of who were dead. She asked us our names, and when Starsky gave her his real name she said, "My third husband was named that too." I hated his guts. She had apparently been in the GC mental institution for a while, where she really hated the secretary and would punch her in the solar plexus and crushed her windpipe underneath my foot if she had the chance. She told us that if we heard her giggle, God was tickling her, and if she became choked up, something evil was afoot. Eventually, an hour passed of her talking and telling us more things that I can no longer recall. She asked us to walk her out to her car, a Rust-Oleum covered mess, where she had the purest water we would ever taste in our entire lives. We politely refused the water, but said we'd walk her out. Point after that, we got in our car and took off on all back roads back to the school and were officially creeped out. Point TLDR, a mentally unstable lady comments on how nice my shorts are. We should change this to craziest thing. Girls aren't as good at creepy as guys because there isn't much intimidation factor. I went on a date and the girl immediately broke into a story about how some stalker firebombed her apartment, killing her roommate in doing so, and then she went on to explain how her mom was trying to steal all the insurance money. This is the first time we've met, and we are supposed to be listening to some live music and eating some decent Mexican food. In my head I'm running away, but really I'm just smiling and enjoying my dinner. So what do you do after you tell your first date firebomb story to this guy you've just met? You invite him over, not to your place, because you don't actually have a home. She invites me over to a professor's house she says she is staying with. Then she locks us in the house and leaves the key in the door. I guess I passed her personal stalker test and she wanted to hook up, but damn. She then proceeded to fall asleep and try to lay on me, and I was like, dude, I'm out of here. Everything feels wrong about this. And her F and Simon as whole. I bought her flowers, but upon seeing her for the first time I left them in my car. I believe I gave them to my mom.